NRG were the champions of the 2023 Summer Split and are running it back for the most part as they've kept 4 out of the 5 of their roster. The lineup consists of Dhokla, Contractz, Palafox, FBI, and the new addition of Huhi at support. Right out the gate, everyone looks at this roster and thinks it surely will be top 2. But actually, I have a completely different take. So let's go over the roster one by one and figure out how they'll do headed into 2024 LCS Spring Split. Let's run it back. Dhokla remains in the top lane for NRG. I'll be the first one to say that I don't think he's the strongest piece to keep. Dhokla is a serviceable top laner when he's not on the sole carrying point for the team, but it's a different ballgame for Season 14, as I think more teams are going to be playing towards top side because of the Void Grubs. Now, I've watched Dhokla since he was on Optic Gaming back in 2018, and whenever he's been given the ball in his career, he's not been able to take the shot consistently. Now, don't get me wrong, Dhokla is a decent top laner. He's balanced enough to play carries in the ideal situations and good on tanks, but when it comes to the bigger games like playoffs, he's not the type of player that gets the carry pick and has the team play towards his lane. That's exactly what you want in Season 14, and honestly, I would have rather seen someone stronger as a carry player for this year. The good thing is, Dhokla actually used to play a lot of split pushers when he was on Optic back in 2018, so I want to see a return to that form with a bit more confidence in his play. If we see that version of Dhokla, it could actually work out for NRG here. Contractz, the king of the aggro style, returns as the jungler for NRG, and while I think he kept up good aggression for 2023, I actually think he had a significant glow up for the year as a whole. He's toned down his aggression and become a much more measured jungler. I'll also point out that most junglers go through the same phase. They start out super aggro, invading by themselves and then getting killed, sometimes chain feeding, and then they rein it back in. Blabber had the same problem on Cloud9 when he first started, and Svenskeren also did. Coincidentally, Contractz is also from the C9 era and had that same problem. But you'd rather have a carnivore jungler by nature that you need to temper than an herbivore jungler that you need to force feed red meat that he just won't eat. Contractz has significantly improved on his jungle pathing, and look, I ain't gonna front. I'm not someone like Emily Rand that will obsess over jungle pathing for the first 7 minutes of the game, but it's clear to me that Contractz has improved his efficiency in jungle pathing. He's far more deliberate about where he's going and isn't inting into the enemy team or being tugged around by his teammates to make a reactionary counter gank, something that I remember seeing back in his early days as a jungler on Cloud9. Contractz is an alright piece to keep, but the big problem I foresee is Contractz and Huhi not meshing together as well as one might think. Contractz is a very talkative jungler, and Huhi is also very vocal. This might just become too many cooks in the kitchen. In 2022 spring, I talked to Contractz when he was on CLG with Palafox and Dhokla, and during COVID, I actually got the incredibly unique experience where I got to sit in the studio with no audience at all, like not even caster sound either. So I got to listen to the CLG's comms firsthand. They were quite cluttered, and I got to ask Contractz about this problem specifically in 2022 summer. I noticed that CLG was very talkative during that time, almost to the point of maybe over communication. Is this, I guess, true? Is my theory correct? Did you guys talk far too much in the beginning?
That was most definitely one of the biggest problems we had in spring. Not to point anyone out or anything, but in scrims, I would be probably the main vocal point of our team, but when we get on stage, everyone is, high tension, we're all amped, the adrenaline's pumping, and Suddenly we have 5 shot callers.
So Contractz, Dhokla, and Palafox are all very vocal players, and adding Huhi to the mix will just be another voice that may clutter up comms. I think this will be the big discordance in this team, and with jungle support synergy being an important thing during mid game, I think this will be the biggest weakness of this team. Hey yo, I know you're enjoying this fire ass content right now, but I need you to subscribe so you can get the latest on player interviews, documentaries, and analytical videos. I'm dropping bombs all in the off season, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Appreciate it, and back to the video. Palafox is once again the mid laner for NRG, and he had some really great standout performances for 2023. Palafox really did show up for the summer split in playoffs, and I'll be the first one to admit that I didn't think he was a very good mid laner at all before 2023 summer split. Now, with that said, I am willing to put him in the official good mid laner basket if he keeps up that consistency for 2024. One of Palafox's biggest strengths is being able to pull out the random champions at the most critical times. This is a coach's wet dream. Having a player that has such a large and frankly underrated champion pool is such a huge advantage. And I think this is going to play such a massive role headed into 2024 spring, as NRG will be able to pull out several surprises. As we all know, the meta is going to be at its most volatile state in the spring split. Now, the huge caveat I have is that he played so well in summer split that I don't think he'll be able to do that again. But hey, if he proves me wrong, I'll be happy to have another elite mid laner to root for in the North American region. FBI is busting down doors at ADC, and this is actually a piece that I 100% agree with keeping. He did his job in 2023 and kept up with the likes of Berserker and Prince in the summer split, and now he's looking like the second best ADC in the league headed into 2024, just right behind Berserker. I think we can expect an even better year from FBI, as he has Huhi back at his side as his support, which we all remember was his support on 100 Thieves back in 2021 and 2022. At times, they look like the best bot lane duo in the LCS, and actually, I think FBI and Huhi might give Berserker and Vulcan a run for their money. Right out the gate, if FBI doesn't end up stomping everyone, I think it will allude to bigger team issues and maybe a lack of ability to play weak side as a bot lane. But in large part, I just think that FBI will perform to expectation, which is obviously top 2 ADC. Huhi comes in as support to replace Ignar, and I think this is a great upgrade on paper. He's a much more versatile player, as the big problem with Ignar was that he isn't great on enchanters, so he's much less meta resistant. Huhi has proven himself as a support at this point and shown he can play a multitude of styles, and he was the best support in 2023 summer, and it wasn't even close. Like I said before though, I'm not necessarily concerned with Huhi's level of play individually, but rather how he'll fit into the communication system of NRG. Huhi is a vocal player, and ironically, I also got to hear his comms as well during COVID. With the addition of him, we could hear a cacophony of shot calling that will just create inaction due to too many voices. Huhi will be able to rely on his previous synergy with FBI to help dominate early on in Spring Split, but I do have questions on how well he'll synergize with the likes of someone such as Contractz. So I'm not going to go over these coaches in detail here, but real quick, ThinkCard is the head coach, and I think he's got a good mind for the game. And from interviewing him in 2020, I think he actually values team synergy and communication quite a lot. And one of my biggest criticisms of his Dignitas team in 2020 was just that their complete ass objective control. But that's why we also have Croissant as his strategic director, promoted from strategic coach, so congrats to him. I've always thought that Croissant had a really strong mind for the game and draft ever since I spoke with him when he was coaching on Optic Gaming way back in 2018. Yeah, I bet you didn't know your homeboy Izento went back that far as an interviewer, huh? If you know, you know. And speaking of which, I'm sure a lot of you guys didn't know that he was coaching Dhokla back in the day, and even pulled out Yorick. So this Optic lineup had Dhokla as the main focal point, often split pushing to try and get wins on the board. So that's incredibly good news for NRG here headed into season 14, where we might be able to see a split push meta. So overall, I think this NRG roster is pretty solid enough. I think they will have some growing pains in terms of communication, and they really need to shore that up quickly because they are well equipped to do a split push style, but that requires crystal clear comms. I think if Dhokla can play with more confidence and step up during high pressure games, NRG could look dangerous, and they'll go neck and neck with FlyQuest to fight for second place. And really, if they perfect the split push style, they could even beat Cloud9, as I think that style will perfectly counter them. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to hear about the rest of my roster rundowns, and stay tuned for an entire power rankings. We out. Peace.